the next major war, who's in Delta now, has been for a few years. He was in Iraq for about a year. 2023-ish. So this was after the fall of Afghanistan and everything. He came back and we were talking and I was like, and they weren't doing anything, but like operationally really. But I asked him, I was like, how'd it go? How are things over there? Like, what's it look like? And he was like, we will be back at war in the Middle East within 5 years. 100% chance.
And this is a guy, like you're saying, you got a guy, I got a guy, I got a bunch of, look, you go to Naval Academy, you got a bunch of classmates that are everywhere in the world. In every sector of America, I got a classmate. And this is one of the classmates I talked to, and it was like, we were having a beer in his backyard, and he was just like, I asked him, I knew where he worked. I said, hey, man, he's like, bruh, he's like, if you knew what we stopped on a daily basis, you would pick your family up and leave immediately.
What's going on in Syria, okay? So Christians essentially are just being slaughtered yet again by the new controlling power in Syria. And what I can do, Jake, is I can sort of give everybody a little bit of a background in Syria and how we got here, who's in charge, why this is happening. So it'll be a 30,000-foot view, but so we can sort of understand that. If we want to do that first.
Yeah.
All right. So you have Hayat Tahrir al-Assad, or al-Sham, excuse me, the moderate Islamic group that took over Syria, okay? And I put huge quotations around that because they're essentially just Al-Qaeda and ISIS reformed that basically overthrew Assad. How did that happen? Kind of timing and placement, okay? So you have to understand Assad being an Alawite, sort of Shia connected, which is why he's connected to Iran, different Hezbollah-backed groups, Russia, okay? Then you have all of the Syrian resistance fighter groups who, of course, America was funding and giving weapons to because we know how well giving weapons to Sunni rebel fighters goes, aka Al-Qaeda, ISIS, everyone else. Anyway, that's what was going on. When Israel starts to sort of push forward and fight Hezbollah up to the north, up into Syria, okay? Iran is predisposed dealing with Israel. This is a couple months ago. Russia, the biggest sort of ally to Assad, what are they dealing with? War with Ukraine. Nobody can support Assad anymore. Turkey, okay, who sort of backs the Sunni side of things and basically they want huge white space in between them and Iran, backs this big push, and the Sunni religious fighters take over and overthrow Assad. He bails, okay? Of course, as every time this happens in the Muslim world, in any country, everyone's excited that the new liberation and like release the prisons and everything's going to be great, okay? Until you realize again that the group that took power is basically just ISIS and Al-Qaeda with a new name. And now they're starting the beheadings and the torture, and it's all coming back. In Somalia, if you guys saw a few weeks ago, we had the big strikes targeting ISIS leadership in Somalia. A lot of people don't understand why the hell how is ISIS in Somalia? ISIS is now sort of strongholded through the northern horn of Africa. Terrorism has not disappeared, guys. It's literally as crazy as it has been. It's just that the media news cycle hasn't shoved it in front of your face for a while. And now this crazy footage coming out of Syria is sort of a reminder to us of like, oh, we just instilled another Sunni extremist group into power, and where'd they get all their weapons and money from? Shocker. So that's what we're about to start dealing with again, right? So this hasn't gone away.
This is important to understand. So when we did all that, we were hitting that terrorism stuff. The lady was talking about everybody coming across the border on the Sean Ryan show, Sarah. That was about 2 months ago. We were hitting all that. I did a bunch of research, and one of the things that I thought was very interesting, who's running Al-Qaeda right now?
I don't know who's
your boy Osama bin Laden's son. He is running Al-Qaeda right now / ISIS. Okay. And so they have partnered with a lot of people. Okay?
Yeah, it's a weird amalgamation right now with a bunch of different
weird
groups.
Amalgamation that they have partnered. But his whole thing is, so his father's whole thing is, this is going to be a slow roll. We're in a generational war so we can bring back the caliphate, right? Okay, well now his son is like, fuck that. I'm doing it in my lifetime, I'm going to see the caliphate. And so everything is accelerated. Like he has started accelerating stuff. Like they've taken over the north of Africa, right? Like, I was just reading today, Somalia has ISIS centers in it. There's 9 of them across the top of Africa right now.
In the north, kind of like the northeastern portion of Somalia, they pretty much have complete control of that right now.
Yes, and so now you're looking at what dogs are we letting lie? They are over there growing strong. They are happy Ukraine is going on, right? They're happy that we got this border
Oh,
issue
yeah.
going on. But I'm going to say this, your boy Trump ain't going to let this fly too long, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's not going to.
I was thinking about that. Well, I was sitting about that while I was thinking about the episode for today. I was like, I think thinking about the next episode I'm going to do, and it's like the next major war. Who's in Delta now? Has been for a few years. He was in Iraq for about a year. 2023-ish. So this was after the fall of Afghanistan and everything. He came back and we were talking, and I was like, and they weren't doing anything, but like operationally really. But I asked him, I was like, how'd it go? How are things over there? Like, what's it look like? And he was like, we will be back at war in the Middle East within 5 years. 100% chance. That was his first response based off of, and this is not a random guy, right? I gave you his background. Yeah.
Not some uneducated war dude. Just
Right. This
a
is a
dude
guy
that
that's
knows what he's talking about.
in the most know of probably fucking anybody. He didn't give me any details, right? Because that's just how professionalism and that type of stuff works. But it was a staunch, like 100%. We will be back at war, Iraq, Afghanistan area, Syria, whatever it looks like, within 5 years because of what you just talked about. It's not just that. Look at Afghanistan, right? Like the Taliban, we forget about them. Like Al Qaeda, like how did 9/11? Well, we can get into all the conspiracies of 9/11, but the official story, right? How does 9/11 happen? Al Qaeda moves into Afghanistan, starts planning terrorist attacks. Do you think that might not be possible again, guys? Considering what Afghanistan and Syria and all these places look like?
Question I have. So Sarah talked about this, 1,500 man assault force that's in America that's going to execute this terrorist raid. The thing that I have been thinking about lately, so since Trump got elected, all that shit died. All of it died, right? And I think, like, if you're ISIS right now, do you really want to roll that out right now, right? Or do you want to wait a couple years and say, you know what? Let's see what happens next year. I feel like if we roll this out right now, this crazy ass president that they got over there may roll over atomic bombs. You know what I'm saying? He may start dropping like, oh, you know what? Just flatten glass Afghanistan. We're done.
And I think we're seeing that too with. I don't think very many people foresaw this. But I think we're seeing that with the cartels, and especially the Sinaloa cartel. We expected this like big pushback and violence to start breaking out, and it's kind of looking like the Sinaloa cartel's like, nah, we'll just wait 3.5 years. We know your guys are this far in front of your face. Kamala Harris, an AOC ticket, wins in 2028, and the border opens right back up. Why would we have, put ourselves in a position to get ourselves slaughtered if you're the Sinaloa cartel, if you're the Jalisco cartel? You start to think about it and you're like, oh, maybe that's what this is going to look like. Same with these terrorist groups in the Middle East. Like, do we really want to start causing mass chaos and like do another 9/11? Did that work out that well for us last time? No, we'll just wait.
And I'm going to say this because a lot of people don't want to hear this noise. We are stopping so many terrorist attacks in the country that this is the exact way it was put to me. Jake, if you knew what we stopped on a daily basis, you would pack up your family and you would leave the country today. You wouldn't even wait until tomorrow. That. And I was like, what? He was like, listen. And this is a guy, like you're saying, you got a guy, I got a bunch of, look, you go to Naval Academy, you got a bunch of classmates that are everywhere in the world. In every sector of America, I got a classmate. And this is one of the classmates I talked to, and it was like, we were having a beer in his backyard, and he was just like, I asked him, I knew where he worked. I said, hey, man, he's like, bruh, he's like, if you knew what we stopped on a daily basis, you would pick your family up and leave immediately. And ever since I heard that like 2004, and you just like, we're doing a good job, man. As much as we want to hate on the FBI and the CIA and all that stuff, we're doing a great job protecting the motherland, right? And so,
well, those organizations, I look at them, they get so much shit, and rightfully so at the top. But like, you look at the Department of Defense at the top with Milley and Austin and all these pieces of shit, right? But was the military still doing really good things operationally during that time? Of course, right? Was SF still doing humanitarian shit all over the world in Haiti after earthquakes and stuff? Of course. So same thing at the FBI, federal marshals. I've got buddies over there, federal marshal SAW group guys that are doing stuff exactly like that right now. At those operational and tactical tiers, there's guys doing awesome stuff that are detached away from, Comey at the top of the FBI doing shit with the Clintons. Like, that's at the bureaucratic level that like is so far above and beyond. Not to say that it's not like doesn't need to get fixed, which I 100% agree with that. But that doesn't mean that, like you said, the FBI, Border Patrol, all these groups like aren't actually doing a ton of work, because they 100% are.
Ton. Hey, I got shout out to my man Jim. Shout out, dog. Law Dog shot me $20. He got a great video. He got shot in the neck. His wife drowned him. That's just how it goes, bro. That's how it goes. Uh, and then 214 Golden Dragons. Salute to you, Jake. Thank you, brother. Appreciate the $20, man. I ain't seen no questions on my stuff. I just think when you start looking at the terrorism in the United States, I think everybody right now is, one of the things that I heard from so I got a couple Mr. Miyagi cats that I call for information, right? And I got two of them. One is my dude Dan Brown, who's a SEAL, who ended up going over there as a cultural awareness dude for like 20 years over there. And then my other one is this other guy I got, and I went to business school with him, but he's a staunch like African dude, right? Like he loves Africa, big kind of Renaissance dude. So I called him 2 weeks ago to ask him about something else, and we had a conversation about it. And some of the things that he was saying just about the world opinions of the United States, like we think over here that everybody loves us, but he kept coming back to the whole world, because I was talking about going to do business in Africa, and he was like, look, man, everybody is terrified of Trump. And I said, really? And they were like, yes, because he's out of his mind and he does not do stuff normally. And they're like, normally there's some projection, what's going to happen. We can see stuff coming. He said, man, Africa is up in arms right now. China's got a big foothold in Africa, and he was like, look, man, like the whole world is terrified of Trump. Terrified. And when he said it that way, I was like, And now you're seeing what's happening in Europe, right? Europe is in the biggest panic it's probably been in since World War II. Trump basically told them, either you pay the money or we're fucking out, which I totally agree with, right? Like, like you fuckers have been living on our shit, okay? This is crazy. The United States government provides 6% of the European EU gross domestic product. 6% is money from us to them.
That's so
and
crazy.
The basis. Almost, I was just like, man, but that's,
just hand it over, right? And like USAID.
Not USAID, just
not
just
like
the
is it economy based?
Bases, the resources, funding, like all of the stuff. But we're 6% of their GDP.
Yeah.
And it should be the other way around. You're paying us to keep them from coming to you. Like, I love what he's doing in Russia. I love it. Hey, Russia, go ahead, man. Have at it. EU, you don't want to pay the bill? Hey, man, go ahead. You want Russia? You want France? Because here's the deal. Russia has never been one of the aggressors, right? Even in the Cold War, we made it.
You're gonna trigger the Ukraine grifters, dude.
You're
gonna trigger them.
This is what I'm saying. Let's not forget, the Cold War was started so that we could grow the national deficit and make more military shit on the space race, okay? But if you think about World War II, Russia's fighting Germany the same way we're fighting Germany. We weren't fighting Russia in the war. Like, we really haven't ever... Russia wasn't trying to conquer Europe. They were just trying to keep Germany from conquering Russia. But see, all this stuff it's all got mixed up. Like, the big Russian bear, right? Like, Russia just...
So, do you know where that comes from? Because my dad's generation, right? For the longest time, I would talk to my dad, and he would automatically be Russia as the, big bad of the world, right? All of his generation feels that way. It's Cold War, man. That cold, like, it's the, and you think about it, like, our parents' generation, they grew up with the fear of like nuclear bombs being dropped on them by Russia at any point in time, right? Have you seen the duck and cover videos from elementary school? Little kids having to learn about how like not get blown away by nukes. So you grow up with that sort of programming into your brain your entire life. Soviet Union falls, Russia isn't necessarily, like the most constitutional democratic republic ever under Putin. However, that thinking is not going to go away. Russia's always, like you said, the big bad bear to a lot of people. Whereas now you have our generation sort of coming up that's looking at it and not looking at it from like, I didn't grow up with that brainwashing. I didn't grow up with Russia being the big scary bad guy. I grew up with Islam being the big scary bad guy. That's my generation. That's what we were programmed with after 9/11, right? So it's the same type of thing. But now we can look at it and I can go, I can look at the Ukraine Russia conflict and go, okay, is Ukraine the ultimate good guy and Russia the ultimate bad guy? Well, if I look at it historically, what's America's involvement? What was going on in 2014 when America overthrew the pro-Russian leader of Ukraine and installed our own little puppet, right? And then we pushed basically weaponry all the way to the border of Ukraine, a couple hundred miles away from Moscow, right?
Yep.
You look at those things and you go, now I don't agree that like with Russia necessarily their choice to invade, whatever. But I can say if America, right, if Russia were to have put a bunch of weapons on the Canadian border and kept all the way down to the border, basically, and were threatening to our sovereignty in a way, do you think we wouldn't have invaded Canada and pushed them off? Of course we would have. We would have done the exact same thing, right? So this is why I'm a big proponent of like, I don't give a shit about either of these sides. I don't care about Ukraine. I don't care about Russia in the fucking war because I don't think we need to have millions of European men being slaughtered. And you want to call me a Russian sympathizer or whatever because I don't want to see millions of people getting slaughtered. Okay, right? But like
I mean,
that's
it
my
just makes
position on it. Like
it
I
just
don't think
makes
we need to have
sense
a
though.
fucking a massive near peer war in Europe going on in
We're at
2025.
we're at 3 million people now. Nate, 3 million people have died in this war, and for what? For what? What does
Right.
Russia want? Russia just wants Ukraine not to be in NATO. That's all they really want. They want to push back the buffer, like you're saying. They want right some semblance that they don't have to worry about some stuff.
And
Okay.
let me caveat this because the most people I see cheering this shit on are people who never served and never fought fucking wars. Okay. Veterans, especially from our era, understand what fucking war looks like. We understand all of our buddies, dead buddies, whose kids don't have dads. Like we've seen, like guys missing limbs. We know the price that war gets, the toll you got to pay. So it's very easy when you're someone who lives in the comfort of America to cheer on. You cheer Ukraine, Slava Ukraine, go, go, keep fighting till the end. It's like, yeah, but when you know what's actually going on in those fucking trenches, you're a lot more likely to not want it to end, right? That's my thing. Real quick, super chats. I'm ranting a little bit, falling behind. Tactical Possum. What are some tactics the cartel might adopt to fight surveillance from the U.S. based on your experience with what you saw in Afghanistan? So what I'll tell you is this. Surveillance is very, very good in nations where it's established, right? So China, okay, go to Dubai, even in America, New York City. Like you're not giving away with fucking anything. Look at the Luigi Mangione case. Like they had a picture of his face everywhere he went in that whole city after that happened. However, on the Mexican side of things, what's the surveillance state of Mexico? Because we don't have all of these cameras set up. What we rely on in Afghanistan and different places, Mexico, primarily is human intelligence. That's how we really, now we have SIGINT and all these different things that help us, but like human intelligence is the ultimate when it comes to access and placement, figuring out who's in charge, where are these syndicate hideouts at. It's going to be very difficult for America to figure that out. So what are tactics they're going to use? I don't know. I mean,
The
not
the biggest
loose
tactic
lips
they're going
sinking sinking ships. Like that's the biggest one that they are going to have to deal with.
I'm
What's
gonna
your
say
thought?
I'm gonna say this because they're all Israeli and kind of that area, right, Middle Eastern trained. The first thing they're gonna do is dump all technology. So they're gonna get rid
Yeah.
of cell phones, internet, all of the things that can be sniffed upon. They're getting rid of, right? And they're gonna
Yep.
be, I wouldn't be surprised. Now I know listening to Pierre, having talked to him kind of on the backside, they're dug in like ticks, right?
Hmm.
Like they going underground. They're trying to limit their above ground footprint. They're not leaving their haciendas. One of the things I haven't figured out, like I just feel like, man, I could run a cartel from Argentina, right? Like I could run a cartel from the
I
mountains
mean,
of Chile.
The Taliban did it from Pakistan the entire war.
Absolutely, but they don't really think like they know they're protected in Mexico, so they've dug in. But like if
Yeah.
you ask me, surveillance wise, like we know where they're at. We know everything. You know what I'm saying? Do we have the kind of granular detail? I got a good buddy that says my job is to find the needle in a pile of needles. And
Yeah.
so I think one of the things that sets the cartels apart is they live so lavishly that it's hard for them to disappear.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point. That's a little bit different than it was in the Middle East, right? In the Taliban, pretty easy for the Taliban leadership to disappear. Caves, villages, Pakistan, Iran. But you're right. When you've got a $40 million mansion in Mexico, and it starts to be like, how's this guy afford this? We
yeah,
don't know. Well, you know, that's an interesting
you're
question.
traveling. Just think about this: you're traveling in 20 car, caravans with up
Right.
armored
Right.
minigun SUVs, or you
Yep.
got, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how they're traveling. They're traveling in MRAPs.
Right.
So like you're
That's so
like,
crazy.
yeah, like you're like, oh man, here they come. Like we're watching them on camera.